Hello, sacred sisters and brothers. I'm back. Let's see if sound works this time. Let me just get Instagram started here. All right. And once someone joins, I believe my sound is working this time. Okay, so as someone joins, if you can confirm that my sound is working this time, pretty please, that would be awesome. And then I will begin. Those on Instagram who've joined, can you hear me? Can you send me an emoji, a thumbs up? Yes, you can hear me. Excellent. Okay, I had my streaming software open and I did not see the comments on Instagram and I couldn't see them on my phone. So I was just sitting over here reading to myself, talking to myself. So let's begin again, shall we? So, welcome everyone to your weekly dose of higher wisdom. For those of you who do not know me, if this is your first time joining me, I'm Dr. Shelley, a cannabis chiropractor, as well as the author of this book, Somatophobia, a guided sacred cannabis journey to your higher self. And this book is the book that I spent my entire life looking for externally, when all along this book was awaiting me inside of my body. So today's topic is cannabis and sex, two of the most taboo. They both have had a war projected at them. They both have been deemed evil and shameful and sinful with tons of preconceived ideas and notions and programs and you name it. So today I'm going to be sharing with you what happens when we don't receive a sacred rite of passage. Because I'll be the first to say, I did not receive any sacred rites of passages for cannabis nor for sex. I wish I would have. It would have saved me so much time and healing that I had to do from choices and behaviors that I made because no one taught me. And that is why I am absolutely uberly beyond grateful to cannabis for coming along and shaking me and waking me up and going, Shelly, this more that you are looking for, revere me as sacred, sister, and I will guide you there. Because when she did, I was at the height of my burnout. And she guided me to the more I was looking for. It's right here. I'm holding it in my hands. And she continues to guide me to the more, because there's always more. We are a living, walking, talking, breathing library. So, without further ado, we are going to dive right in. Throughout today's live, you do not need to see me. I will invite you to close your eyes, stay connected to your breath, and just feel all of the shared passages, all of my questions that I pose, stories that I tell. Feel it. And if I'm sharing a story, connect with it. How can I look at that in my life? How can I reflect on that and go, how does that play out for me? What does that look like and feel like for me? Use it for your healing journey. As you are listening, stay connected to your body. I'll invite you to connect to your breath. Slow down your inhales and exhales. Feel your body expanding on the inhale, relaxing, detracting on the exhale. So feel your body inflating like a balloon with every inhale, deflating like a balloon on every exhale. Also, throughout the live, if you drink water, tea, anything to hydrate your temple body with, I'll invite you to feel this ritual. And this is a ritual that you should have received in a sacred rite of passage about your body and its magnificent healing powers, that the power that made your body, your life force, your innate intelligence, can heal anything and everything. You just have to remember how to turn on that life force, waking her up. So, with this ritual, and I'll invite you to remember it on your own. I'm not going to remind you throughout, as I do in my somatic cannabis ceremonies. But whatever it is that you're hydrating with, take a sip of it, hold it in your mouth, dance your tongue in it, create waves, swish it around, feel the liquid. What does it look like? What does it taste like? What does it smell like? What does it sound like? Swishing around as you dance your tongue in it. Meet it, feel it, activate all of your five senses. And then, what I am frequency are you going to infuse it with? Whatever your I am is, I am joy, I am abundance, I am love, I am peace, whatever it is. What does that sound like? And then hum your I am frequency into the liquid as you visualize its molecular structure, restructuring into the most beautiful sacred geometry that's in alignment with your higher I am frequency. And then when you swallow it, visualize it flowing through your sacred waters, cleansing them of all lower frequencies that you've been vibrating at throughout your day up until now, and allow it to recalibrate you to your higher frequency of your higher self and your higher consciousness. And just in the previous live where there was no sound, I was actually ending it by sharing that without receiving this rite of passage when we were young, growing up, consciously remembering in every moment I put something in my mouth, I'm going to pause. I'm going to check in. I'm going to feel. And I'm going to do a ritual. I'm going to restructure and recalibrate that liquid to my higher frequency. Without a rite of passage, guess what? We go through life now unconsciously. We don't even pay attention. We don't even taste what we're drinking, let alone pause and make it a ritual. And this ties into no rites of passages for cannabis and sex because we're not checking in with either. We're doing both of these activities, consuming cannabis or engaging in sex, unconsciously. The same way we unconsciously eat and drink, especially living in this go, 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 do lifestyle where everything moves so fast and we're already disembodied. We disassociate, we check out because of all those unhealed traumas stored in our fascia. Our body has been deemed as the scary place to be. It's not safe to be in our body. So we go through life and we don't stop and pause and check in and honor our sacredness. And this is truly the effect on humanity that no rites of passage creates. There is no sacredness. We're just going through life unconsciously, checking out, and with cannabis and sex, chasing a false high and chasing false pleasure. And I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into that here in a little bit. But without further ado, allow me to share this passage from Portal 1, Spiral 1 in my book, Meet Cannabis, Your High Priestess, the original High Priestess. And allow me to remind you that as I share passages from these first few spirals, Cannabis assisted me in writing this book because she guided me to where it was hiding out in my womb. So I wrote these first few spirals from the first person of cannabis, her higher self, as she was helping me unlock this knowledge and wisdom. So when I say I imagine cannabis, her higher self is speaking to you the same way she came and she spoke to me and said, Shelly, if you revere me as sacred, I'll guide you to that more that you've been looking for your entire life, yet you've not found because you're looking externally, not internally. So Hello, sacred soul. My name is Cannabis. You may also know me as marijuana, Mary Jane, weed, ganja, pot, hash, asparagus, or one of my other 1,200 slang terms, or 2,300 individual strain names. You may think that when people call me a weed, it's humiliating and derogatory, but I view it as a compliment. And here is why. Over the last century, I have endured more than you can possibly imagine. I've been used as the culprit for racism, division, and separation. I've had a war on drugs waged against me with ridiculous propaganda saying that I kill brain cells and make people go crazy. I've been categorized as a Schedule 1 drug alongside heroin and bath salts. I've been accused of being a gateway drug. I've been the cause of misdemeanor and felony charges. I've been the center of jokes and memes. I've been attached to the stoner stereotype as the reason for the loss of drive and ambition. I've been blamed for invoking fear, paranoia, anxiety, the munchies, and even unwanted sexual experiences. I've been labeled addictive. I've been genetically modified, raped, and prostituted. I've been prohibited every which way from Sunday. And I've been rejected from spiritual practices because, well, you don't need a substance, quote unquote, to access your higher consciousness. Come on. That was one of the preconceived ideas I had about cannabis coming out of the spiritual consciousness community. Basically, I've been deemed evil and unholy, which has caused so many humans to form strong convictions and prejudices about me. And just like Shakti, your life force energy, your sexual energy, your chi, your prana, your divine feminine essence, she has also been repressed, shamed, judged, distorted, feared, prohibited, perverted, misused, abused, devalued, misunderstood, and deemed evil. So have I, as I am an embodiment of Shakti, your life force. I still stand strong and resilient. The truth is, I work in mysterious and magical ways. I am one of the most versatile plants that grow out of Mother Earth's sacred and holy body. Her lands are healed just by my very presence of being grown there. I was once revered with utmost respect, earning a spot in the Vedas as one of 5 sacred plants that provides you with happiness, joy, and liberation from fear, anxiety, depression, insomnia, and psychological ailments. I can facilitate an altered state of consciousness within you that is comparable to that of psilocybin, ayahuasca, DMT, and even bufo, Mother Earth's sacred toad medicine that currently holds the title as the world's strongest psychedelic. Now, let me pause here and ask you, without a sacred cannabis rite of passage, have you experienced and felt cannabis as strong as psilocybin, ayahuasca, or DMT, or even bufo, 5-MeO DMT? Because before cannabis, her higher self said, Shelley, revere me with sacredness, only imbibe me in sacred ceremony. And sisters and brothers, there's no judgment in your relationship with cannabis throughout this live, anything I post and share. There's no judgment because we all begin down here in our lower state of consciousness as untapped potential, as a seed, an individuated expression of the Divine Mother. We are a seed that needs to germinate, but we have to do something for our seed to germinate into our highest potential. We don't just, boom, we're connected to divinity. And I'm going to guide you down this portal here in a little bit. But without that sacred cannabis rite of passage that said, hey, if you imbibe cannabis in sacred ceremony, with rituals, just like the ritual that allows you to slow down, check in, and feel. You will meet the sacredness of cannabis, and she is just as powerful as any of these other psychedelics and plant medicines. But if you don't revere her as sacred, just like you don't revere your water as sacred and you don't restructure it, how can the water restructure and recalibrate your body's molecular structure? How can it cleanse your body's waters if you don't invest time, consciousness, presence, and awareness in the ritual itself? And just as I was never taught this, my body shared this ritual with me. Thanks to cannabis guiding me to that knowledge and wisdom in my body said, hey, Shelly, slow down. Do this, do this, do this, do this. Wow, this is amazing. How come my parents never taught me this? They didn't know either. And this is where we are at with both cannabis and sex. Without rites of passage, we don't know what we don't know. And when I share posts about revering cannabis as sacred, it's amazing how many people will reason and justify and defend their stance that me drinking this tea unconsciously, oh no, it is going to restructure my body's waters. But what did you do to restructure its molecules first so that they can restructure your molecules? No different than with cannabis. Without imbibing her with rituals and an intention, what did you do so that you invoke her higher self and her higher consciousness? Did you ask her permission so she can guide you home to your higher consciousness? See the similarities here. If you don't change your water or your tea's molecular structure, how can it change your molecular structure? And this is where, without a sacred cannabis rite of passage, a lot of people don't know. They were never taught. So how they consume cannabis, they view that as sacred. And why I say there's no judgment there, we all begin down here in our lower state of consciousness. We all have to rise into our sacredness. It's there, it's awaiting us. We just have to choose it. So, and we have to open our minds and our eyes to seeing all the ways in which we're not honoring and revering ourselves, cannabis, sex, or this tea or water that I'm cleansing my body with as sacred. Just as humanity fell from divinity, my status also fell from divinity. I was dethroned from my rightful position as a sacred plant teacher who can guide you home to your higher self and higher consciousness. The prohibition of me was planned to keep you blinded from your higher self and higher consciousness. Kind of just like the pandemic was planned. It was a plandemic. This war on cannabis, this war on sexuality, it's all planned. Why? To keep you disconnected from your divinity, from your higher self, your higher consciousness, to keep you in a state of dissociating, a state of dis-ease, a state of delusion, a state of disconnection from source, a state of your mind and body divorced, rather than a state of divine union, which is one of the nicknames that I have for cannabis. She is the plant of divine union because when she's revered as sacred, she can guide you home to divine union within you. And then that divine union is projected externally in all of your relationships. Just as your sexuality, the gateway to your divinity, was shamed, deemed taboo, and made sinful, I, your divinity guide, was also shamed, deemed taboo, and made sinful. The same humans who sought to subjugate the divine feminine within you sought to degrade me. This subjugation and degradation of the divine feminine has tainted your relationship with me. You probably only know me at a superficial level, i.e., what you've been programmed to believe, what you've heard, or what you've experienced. I am here to invite you to get to know the real me, my authentic soul, my higher self. You see, I camouflage and hide my full power, my higher power, until I know that you are ready to meet me, my higher self, my spirit, my soul. My highest potential is comparable to your highest potential. Just as your higher self keeps your highest potential safeguarded, my higher self keeps my highest potential safeguarded. All ancient wisdom has always been safeguarded and kept secret among the spiritually elite. Hence the word occult, which means beyond the realm of human comprehension, secret or mysterious, and only available to initiates. Well, guess what, sacred soul? Your higher self is a cult. To truly grasp what your highest potential is, what having your higher self fully embodied feels like, what living with all of your DNA activated feels like, what no pain, no fear, and no limitations feel like, is beyond your comprehension. And it only becomes available to you when your higher self recognizes that you are ready and initiates you on your path home. What if you didn't need anyone to initiate you except your higher self? The same is true with me, cannabis. When my higher self recognizes that you are ready to meet me, the real me, then and only then will I unlock my safeguard. And do you want to know what the 9 magic divine passcodes are that unlock my safeguard? Respect, reverence, honor, invitation, permission, gratitude, intention, trust, and surrender. So now, with the following questions that I ask you, I want you to mirror them with both cannabis and with sex, how you currently do sex. Because just as there's no shame in your current relationship with cannabis, it's just a mirror of your current relationship with self. I'm inviting you to mirror these questions into your sex life. Are these 9 divine passcodes present? And if not, then how you do one thing is how you do all things. I coined that years ago. And how you are in relationship with yourself is also how you're in relationship with cannabis, and it's also how you engage in sex. Do you respect me as a sacred plant medicine? Do you respect your womb as sacred? Hara for the men. Do you revere me as a divine spirit? Do you revere you as a divine spirit? Do you honor my mysterious and magical ways? Do you honor your body and your womb's mysterious and magical ways? Do you invite my higher self to join you in your ceremony, ritual, or practice? Do you invite your higher self to join you in whatever sexual experience you are engaging in? Do you ask my permission to engage in a sacred exchange? Do you ask your partner permission to engage in a sacred energetic exchange? SEX, sex. Do you express gratitude for me as your healing ally? Do you express gratitude for your womb, your hara, as your sacred space that houses your holy grail, that houses a throne for your higher self? Do you share your intention with me so I can better serve you? Do you share your intention with your partner when you engage in sex? Do you set an intention for yourself, even if you don't share it with your partner? Do you trust me 1000% in what I will reveal to you? Do you trust you in the act of sex to not expel your sacred Shakti, your life force energy, your sexual energy in an orgasm or an ejaculation? And do you surrender to my divine guidance? Do you surrender to your divine guidance of your higher self, of engaging in sex sacredly, not from a place of distortion or perversion or chasing after those 7 seconds of false pleasure, which again, the French call it little death, a little ego death for a reason. But that little ego death occurs in your lower Garden of Eden. You are expelling your life force, your Shakti, out of your body. You are expelling that energy, the very energy that keeps you alive. You're expelling that out of your body because there were no rites of passage saying, hey, before your first sexual experience, here are 9 divine passcodes. Honor the act of sex. Revere yourself as well as your partner as sacred, as divine spirits coming together, uniting as one. Revering the act of sex as a healing act with rituals in ceremony to heal, not to fuck, not to chase after that little ego death, which is only 7 seconds that leaves you feeling depleted and drained of your energy afterwards. This is what was taught in these rites of passages that we did not receive, which is why we are at where we are at in humanity today. So whether it is with sex and the not so sacred way that we engage in sex, the wham bam, thank you ma'am way, how we consume cannabis has also fallen from sacredness, from the divine way of meeting her higher self and higher consciousness by bringing these 9 divine passcodes into a ceremony to check in, to feel, to heal, to call home your higher self, to eject and shed those trauma cells that act as command control centers created by the ego. Because if your higher self has fled the scene of trauma, trauma is felt in your body. At the time of trauma, there is an impact of pain, just like a comet impacting Mother Earth. There is a shock, there is an impact. So your higher self flees the scene to avoid the full impact of pain. Well, guess what? The pain is kind of like now a crater. I live in a volcanic crater, so Pachamama is giving me this analogy right now. So now we have this crater in our body from the impact of pain, and our higher self fled the scene. So who now is in control of this part of our body where we felt the impact of that pain, of that trauma? Well, the ego comes along to save the day and it wants to protect you, so it creates a trauma self, a false identity. And it is this trauma self that controls this part of your body because your higher self has fled the scene. And this is where soul loss comes into play. And in my somatic cannabis ceremonies, literally what you are remembering is how to retrieve your soul. You do not need someone or something external to retrieve your soul. You just got to remember how to retrieve your soul by taking away power from those trauma selves, transmuting those stuck energies where that crater is, healing that part of your body, creating space and reclaiming it for your higher self to come home. So it's interesting that I'm discussing cannabis and sex, and I love these 2 taboo topics, and I'm so grateful I never received a rite of passage because yes, it would have saved me a lot of healing, a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of unwanted experiences. But you know what? I am so grateful that I reached and accessed this rite of passage on my own, that my body was like, Shelly, you don't need anyone or anything external to give you a rite of passage. I'm going to give you a rite of passage. You just got to check in and feel. And that's where cannabis guided me deep into my body, the more traumas I transmuted, the more of my higher self I reclaimed. And in retrieving my higher self, along with it comes the gift. And the gift, when I unwrap it, I literally unwrapped 600 plus pages of knowledge and wisdom. There was so much more. But in unwrapping it, that's where the knowledge and wisdom comes from. Wow, that's how I healed a trauma. And then afterwards, this ritual came. So we don't need others to give us a rite of passage, but we have to have a deep inner yearning, a desire for more, to go looking for the more. And we can't have any fear of feeling, otherwise, we will not push through the pain to get to the other side, which is where the knowledge and the wisdom and the gold really lie. So, because we did not receive any sacred rites of passages, if we look at sex and cannabis, there are 3 stages of awakening with both. And this applies for everything. 3 stages of awakening just in humanity as well, in terms of empowerment and enlightenment. We have dormant, and then we have distorted, and then we have divine. Well, in the golden ages, Sat Yuga, we were 100% connected to our divinity. And then in the next yuga, we fell down to 75% connected. And then in the next yuga, we fell down to 50% connected. And now we are in the final Kali Yuga, where we are the least connected to our divinity. Hence why soul loss and disembodiment are the real pandemic. We are disconnected from our divinity. Hence, no rites of passage. Hence, cannabis in her dormant state. There's a lot of fear and propaganda and the war on drugs, and she's evil, and she's taboo, and she's this, and she's that. So her higher power is completely dormant. She's being misused and abused and mistreated and genetically modified to get a higher false high. It's like, imagine getting a genetic injection of something that intensifies your orgasm, but not intensifying it on the side of sacredness. Intensifying it, it's like taking Viagra and living with that 3-hour erection that it's not really pleasurable, it's painful. And I don't know personally, but that's what I've heard. So imagine that we have to genetically modify her to check out even more to get a higher high, because our tolerance is getting bigger and bigger and we need more and more. And that happens with sex as well. We're chasing after that false high, false dopamine high, false pleasure, the high of the 7 seconds of an ego death. But when we're experiencing the false pleasure and the false high from our lower state of consciousness, our lower Garden of Eden, guess what? It's short-lived, it's temporary, it's not real, it's not our highest potential. So your seed of your untapped divine potential has not germinated yet. It's not been watered, it's not been honored, it's not been revered as sacred, it's not been given nourishment for it to blossom into its highest potential, your higher potential. So when we don't have these sacred rites of passages, there's the dormant phase, and then there's the distorted phase, which we can see a lot of. So in the realm of sex, well, dormant sexuality, I didn't touch on that. Dormant sexuality is where sex is taboo, sex is shameful and sinful. It's so bad and wrong. We can't even talk about it. I have to whisper. I'm going to get banned on social media. Like, there's so much of that fear when dormant sexuality exists. And you're not able to feel your life force energy. You're not able to feel your Shakti. You can't even feel alive. You may not even be able to feel what an orgasm feels like. And just like we can't feel when we're in our dormant sexuality, we can't feel the higher power and potential of the higher self of cannabis when we are functioning in that dormant state of cannabis intelligence. So now in the distorted phase, coming up a level, distorted cannabis use is addictive, codependent, overuse and misuse and abuse. And it's simply due to no rites of passages. Cannabis herself is not addictive. what is addictive is that short, brief glimpse, that mental vacation from your go, go, go chronic state of fight, flight, freeze reality that you live in, where your nervous system is not able to just relax. You're not present, you're not aware, you're not honoring your body as a temple, as sacred, you're not slowing down when you eat and drink or pee and poop. So there's no sacredness. And this is how, in the distorted version of cannabis use, there's no sacredness. Let me just light up and wake and bake in the morning, and there's no intention, there's no honoring. And throughout the day, I keep needing to smoke more and more and more to sustain that false high. Whether it's an addiction or whether it's codependent use, because a lot of people view medicinal use as sacred. And while cannabis has numerous medicinal benefits and properties, she does not heal you alone. Just like just drinking this herbal tea that I made, it's not going to heal me by itself. I have to invest my consciousness, my awareness. I have to restructure it for it to restructure my molecular structure. So in the distorted version, even medicinal use is codependent use because, well, I'm consuming cannabis to treat this pain or symptom that I have. But what if, with a sacred cannabis rite of passage, you would have been taught that the higher power of cannabis can actually guide you in healing the root cause of that pain or symptom? So you don't just need to consume her every single day like a supplement or like big pharma drugs. You're not treating a pain or a symptom, because if so, you're codependent on her. What happens when you stop consuming cannabis? That pain or symptom is still there. It may be lessened, but guess what? It is still there. And it is going to return because you never addressed the root cause. And again, no judgment. There is no judgment at all wherever you are at, because this is the part of the awakening journey. You go from dormant, then you go to distorted, and then you go to divine. You have to climb your ladder to divinity. You got to climb that mountain, Mount Meru, to your divinity. So, distorted sexuality now. Distorted sexuality is, people are starting to wake up and go, okay, there's something here. There's some power in my sexuality. Another phrase that I coined years ago. Mm-hmm. And is in my book, is this version of distorted sexuality. Men are success objects, women are sex objects. And we see that playing out with this deep dive into this lower state of sexual consciousness, with all the distorted and perverted kinks and fetishes and OnlyFans and women selling their sexuality, their body, their temple for financial freedom, selling their soul for financial freedom through this version of distorted sexuality. And one of my, a trigger, of course, that, but one of my former triggers or pet peeves is taking ancient occult knowledge and wisdom and then using a distorted version of your sexuality to sell it, calling it tantra, calling it sacred sexuality, when it's not. It's using sexuality to make money. That still ties into this lower state of consciousness, this distorted version of sexuality. That is not sacred. There is no judgment in it, but it's not sacred. The distorted version of sexuality, as well as the dormant version, we can see it clearly in our sexual state of consciousness today, with the high rates of abuse, of rape, of genital mutilation, of genetic modification of our bodies because we don't love them. The list goes on and on and on. All those kinks and fetishes and fantasies, again, chasing after false pleasure. Using those kinks and fetishes and fantasies as a coping mechanism. there's a huge humiliation wound in the BDSM realm. So now moving up to the divine state of awakening for both cannabis and sex. The divine state is imbibing cannabis in sacred ceremony, just as she asked me. And because I was at the height of my burnout, yes, cannabis, whatever you say, absolutely, I will honor and revere you as sacred. If you can guide me to the more I'm looking for, that I've been looking for, that I haven't found, yes, please, I will do whatever. And from that moment on, I never once again consumed cannabis recreationally or medicinally, only in sacred ceremony with an intention to drop into my body, to feel and to heal, to check in, not to check out, to retrieve my higher self, not to further disconnect from my higher self. Because when cannabis is revered with sacredness and used in this divine, this higher state of consciousness, you will unlock her safeguard and she will reveal her higher power to you. And without that rite of passage, it's so easy to become defensive and to reason and justify that just lighting up and waking and baking, well, that's sacred. I honor her as sacred, just like I honor Mother Earth and the trees and this. How can you honor Mother Earth and the trees and the plants and this and that as sacred when you're going through life unconsciously, checked out, not present, disembodied? It's no different in sex. How can you honor your womb as sacred, your partner's womb or hara as sacred, when you're coming together and you're connecting unconsciously and there's none of these divine passcodes, no invocation of your higher self, no intention of what are we going to heal? When my husband and I engage in any sexual experience, it does not look like anything you've ever seen or experienced in society today. It is a healing ceremony with rituals, with an intention. This morning, I adjusted his right SI joint, his hip deep fascial, riveting through his right leg. And it did not even look like sex, but it was the most beautiful version of sacred sexuality that we have remembered, thanks to cannabis unlocking this memory from our body, because all memories are stored in your body. And that truly is the higher purpose of both cannabis and sex. They are meant to guide you home to your higher self, to your higher consciousness. They are here to be allies for you on this journey home to reclaiming your divinity, to reclaiming your inner god and goddess. So, the lineage I come from, and this is why I love talking about anything and everything taboo, always have. So my grandfather on my father's side was a preacher and a very egotistical one at that. He thought he was God, you know. So at 5 years old, I remember asking my mom, Mom, how do we know for sure that there's this false or this man in the sky? He is a false man now, but back then I didn't know he was false, but I was asking about it like, how do we know for sure that there's this man in the sky who's all judging, watching my every move, and he's going to determine if I go to heaven or hell? If he's going to determine, like Santa Claus, if I've been good or bad. And she's like, well, honey, I don't know. Why don't you ask Papa? And I was like, no, thank you. I didn't want to deal with the ego because I knew he would. Well, why are you asking? Yes, God is real. God exists. You know, I'm a a version of God. And yes, he was right. We are all individuated expressions of God, but not from the inflated ego version of God, from the humble version of I am God and Goddess embodied. Embodied is the key word. So that started my journey with religion and how it ties into sexuality now. I was an early bloomer with sexuality, exploring my body from the age of 2. And it's funny because my father began questioning his father about being a hypocrite. So, Dad, you stand in front of your congregation and you tell everybody they're not allowed to have a TV in their home, but you and Mom have a TV in your bedroom and you guys are the only ones who can watch it. Is that not hypocrisy? So my dad had pulled away, as long with his brothers, they had pulled away. His sisters, deep dive into religion, safety, salvation, pleasing daddy. So my father and his brothers, they pulled away and they opened strip clubs. They went deep into the lower version of sexuality. So from the time of 9, 10, up until about 13, 14, I grew up in the back office of my father and uncle's strip clubs, meeting everyone who worked there, meeting customers. Everybody knew me on the weekends when there was nobody around. I would dance up and down the stage, but I got to experience and witness firsthand this world of distorted sexuality. And I am so thankful to my lineage for being deeply religious and deeply sexual, because it gave birth to me finding my way home. Like, this doesn't feel right. I know there's something sacred. This is the more that I spent my whole life looking for, and cannabis guided me in finding it. So when we don't have these rites of passages, look at humanity and where we are at today. Is this good enough for you? Or do you desire more? Do you desire to remember that you are sacred? Do you desire to remember how to retrieve your soul and come home to your body? Do you desire to tap in to your higher consciousness? And if so, then these distorted or dormant versions of you and how you are in relationship with cannabis or with sex or how you do anything in life, this is an invitation for you to check in, to feel how your reality is working for you. Is it sacred for you? And if it's not sacred, remember, there is no judgment. There is only an invitation to return it to sacredness. So, with that being said, thank you all for being here. I am so happy my sound worked the second time. Real quick, I'm just going to hop on over here out of my streaming software to Instagram to see if you have any questions, any comments. Let me wiggle my way forward so I can read the screen. If you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and ask them. Yes, hermana, I will do one eventually in Spanish. Thank you for commenting, sister. And let me check on Facebook. If any of you have any questions, I have about 10 minutes until Instagram is going to kick me off. Feel free to ask questions in the comments, and I will answer them to the best of my current knowledge. If I need to check in with cannabis later, I will. And if not, while I'm waiting here for comments or questions, if not, you know how to reach out to me. Send me a private message on any of my social media channels. If you're a woman, if you're not in my Cosmic Rebirthing portal on Telegram, there is an associated group where you can ask whatever, and it's a safe and sacred space for you to be raw and vulnerable. And we engage all the soul sisters who are on this path of healing and coming home to our higher selves and higher consciousness, returning home to our sacredness. And then for any of you who have not met the higher self, the higher power, the higher consciousness of cannabis, who desire to, I have a few invitations for you to meet this higher self of cannabis that I speak about and that this book is dedicated to. Every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern, I offer a weekly womb kriya cannabis ceremony where I guide you with resistance bands, wherever mine are, in expanding your fascia, waking up your Shakti, your life force, your inner healer, using your breath and movement and sound, all the Shakti activators, to transmute those stuck energies or blockages in your fascia, which is your pathway of consciousness in your body. As you clear those blockages in your pathway to consciousness, you open up into your higher consciousness. Your higher self can come home and be embodied. Your first ceremony is free. All you need is cannabis and resistance bands. And this is for women. If there are men here, brothers listening, my husband guides a 𝐼𝐸 ceremony, and your first one is free with him as well. They're not as intense as my 𝐬𝐻 ceremonies. You get off the hook a little bit because my 𝐬𝐻 ceremonies can be quite intense. We go deep into our body and really feel the restrictions and the stuckness. And then next Wednesday, I am offering a guided somatic cannabis meditation and breathwork ceremony. It's a slowed down version of my weekly 𝐬𝐻 ceremonies. It's a co-ed ceremony as well, so invite your partner. And in this ceremony, you are going to meet the higher self of cannabis. You are going to meet a few variations of how to imbibe cannabis with rituals and an intention. I consider this ceremony a sacred cannabis rite of passage. Whatever your relationship is with cannabis, bring it. It is welcome. And you are going to meet that relationship and meet how you can shift it to being a sacred relationship. And then I'm going to guide you into your body, into feeling and remembering how to use your life force energy to heal whatever shows up. And then at the end of the month, November 22nd, I have a somatic ceremonial book reading with my amazing husband who plays musical instruments while I share passages from Somatophobia. It's also a free ceremony. All you need is cannabis and a yoga mat and some pillows and a blanket and a Bluetooth speaker. And then on November 17th, I also have a womb steam cannabis and microdose of �𝐸𝐵𝐶 ceremony for my fellow sisters. So if you have any questions about my monthly ceremonies or the weekly 𝐬𝐻 ceremonies or my husband's 𝐼𝐸 ceremonies and how they can introduce you to this higher self, this higher consciousness, this divine state of being in relationship with cannabis, I have a lot of offerings available to you. Don't be shy, reach out. And if there are no questions, once again, from my womb, heart, and soul to your womb, hearts, and souls, thank you all for joining me here today. I honor you. I am absolutely grateful that you are all here on this journey with me. And it'd be my highest honor to guide you home to your higher self. Have a beautiful day. And I will see you next Thursday for your weekly dose of higher wisdom, which I think we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the cannabis and sex topic. So I will see you all next Thursday, if not before then, in a ceremony. Have a beautiful day. Namaste. I love you all.